Hello, good morning, and welcome to the third in our series of Bigger Backyard webinars. I'm joined this morning by three very fine people just to my right here to talk about taking your business online successfully. Giles White, Tani Martin, and Jessica Gray. We'll be coming to those guys shortly. Firstly, we'd like to just acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we all meet and pay respect to elders past and present. And also we'd like to talk a little bit about the Bigger Backyard. We've been working on the Bigger Backyard for some time now. We've been traveling up and down the Mid-Coast, meeting a whole range of businesses. And you've seen some of the case studies that we've put together already. And we're going to share another one of those with you now. We're going to share the Harrington Hotel case study. So without any further ado, let's hear from Shona from the Harrington Hotel.
Harrington Hotel's been here since 1902. Prior to that, it was a boarding house. We took over in June '97. We've done two major renovations in that time, just to basically make the hotel a more family-friendly place to come and have a drink and something to eat. Harrington Hotel's probably best known for its location. I mean, there's not many other places on the mid-north coast where you can come and sit right on the water to dine, and it's great for the kids to be able to run around out the back as well. And I think the food is very popular here. We have pretty famous chicken schnitzels and wood-fired pizzas. I guess we provide a lot of employment too for a lot of the people in the area. We're probably one of the bigger employers in Harrington. We run a lot of events with the Lions Club and other charities in the area. We try to sponsor a lot of the local sporting groups. We run raffles, which the fishing club and benefit from those. We also have other donations to like Little Athletics, the local cricket club and Moorland Soccer Club as well. Originally we were attracted to the mid-coast. This hotel was in such a great location, being right on the water, and we could see there was a lot of potential growth here. We could see that with the developments that were coming into the area, that the whole area was going to be boosted by that. And we also then were attracted to the community feel of Harrington. It just has a real good sense of community, this area, and always has done. But we found probably in the last 10 years the increased profile of the area has meant a lot more foot traffic, a lot more people coming in off the highway into Harrington, which is benefit to all the businesses in town. I'd like the future of the hotel to remain as it is now. It's a real part of the community. It's a place where people can come, socialise, do business, and it's really like a hub in the town. It's always been run as a family business. My husband and I run it together until unfortunately he passed away last year. And now we feel like we're selling it to the Hunt Hospitality Group, who I'd like to run their hotels in a similar manner. And this place will continue to be a place that everyone can come to and socialise and do their business.
Another great business up on the Mid-Coast, and another thoroughly enjoyable day spending some time with Shona up in Harrington. We're going to begin by talking to Jessica Gray from Smart Coast Conveyancing. Jess, before we start talking about how you took your business online, do you just want to tell people watching a little bit about yourself and the business?
Thanks, Paul. Smart Coast Conveyancing is my business, and I'm the co-owner of that business with my business partner, Kelly Carey. We're located in Tuncurry in the Mid-Coast, and we've been operational for about 4.5 years now.
So what led you to think initially about taking a conveyancing business online, Jess? How did that come about?
Well, thankfully, we were blessed with starting the business from scratch and having the idea of having a digital presence right from the start. So we didn't have to unlearn any bad habits or transition mid-game like some of these people are having to do now in a COVID environment. But in 2017, when we opened Smart Coast, Kelly and I basically were really conscious of not coming into that market and taking a market share that was currently there. So our goal was always to really provide a superior service locally, but we wanted to, because we were registered to operate in New South Wales wide, we really wanted to take on that larger market and bring that work and that slice of the pie back to the LGA.
And at the time, that would have been, I guess, fairly innovative in the industry.
Yeah, working in law, it's always been a bit taboo to become a paperless office. We really had to think about how we were going to reach the wider market and how we were going to get in contact with those people. How would they find us?
So when you began the journey, where did you start the process? How did it come about?
We probably started very poorly, both in skills and limited budget. So we sort of fumbled our way through it in the beginning. So I'm sure everyone that's out there, that's quite, it's quite daunting, but we were there as well. We really wanted to, I guess, find ways to reach those people. And we learned very early on that involved far more than just having a website. So at this point, even our website was really clunky when we started. Our branding was half completed. So we just really had to focus on our strengths, things like Facebook, which we've done in a social sense. So we use that as our sort of leading out into the market. And then we grew into areas like Google, putting things up like photos, maps, reviews, things that we thought were easier in the beginning, and then we just expanded.
So if we're looking at your processes and how that works online, how are your processes online? What have you done to take conveyancing into a digital state?
Well, I guess the first thing that we really had to do was figure out who we were. So we had to figure out our branding. We felt that you can't sell something that you don't believe in. So when you're going online and transitioning online, you sort of become messy and untargeted if you don't know who you are. So I guess for me, it was probably a little bit silly, but I used to sit down at all my devices and brainstorm with myself. So I was thinking, if I want to find myself, what am I looking for? So if I'm a first home buyer and I want to find myself in the most easiest possible way, how do I connect with you? So this sort of allowed me to then organically grow my website and start to partner with other, I guess, collaborative businesses, places like, Local Search, Yellow Pages, Bigger Backyard, of course, and sort of just using those marketing teams in the back end to help me get more coverage out there on the web. And I started to get more target marketing across Facebook, starting to grow my reach, and that just grew organically, but also with more target marketing, I've had a larger reach there.
And you mentioned that you started out on your own with a fairly clunky website, and your processes weren't great. Did you find that you got to a point where you needed help with that it was just something that was beyond your web capabilities?
Absolutely. I would say one of the greatest challenges I had was learning to know my own value. So obviously I can make a lot more money doing things that I'm good at, which is conveyancing. So I had to really learn to outsource those things that I potentially wasn't as good at. I partnered with some really amazing businesses locally, like Heath and Hoff, to do my website. The Beach Geek locally here has been amazing. I still spend an hour to 2 hours a week with Hector there. He is absolutely invaluable in terms of what he offers me. So therefore he gets to be able to do what he's doing, and I'm not wasting time on fiddling around with things that I'm not comfortable with. There's also, for me, having the right systems that match what you're trying to do. If you're trying to sell a product and people jump online and they find you, and then the shop is clunky, the shop doesn't work, it crashes every time they try to pay, it puts your customers or your clients off. So we really had to make sure that we had the right systems in the back end to support the clients once we found them.
And have you had some technical challenges with the systems that you use?
Look, I think it was very much a learning curve. The biggest thing for me, and it probably sounds quite bizarre, is that the market out there on the web can be too big. You can't just throw a giant net over the web and get the best result. So learning how to target a market for every campaign is really important. Trying to get the right strategies. Also, we've used different phone systems, and we were lucky enough, our document management system from the beginning has been amazing. We use a program called Smokeball, and it's been great for managing documents and keeping that in the cloud. I guess learning to set time every day for your marketing and learning to enhance your systems and use them to the full capacity is really important, and making sure your staff is really trained on everything so you're getting the best out of it.
That's a really key thing that we hear quite a lot, is that that people have great technology but don't necessarily bring their staff along the journey. How did you go about bringing your staff along that journey into the technology?
I think I've been really lucky because I have staff that are really positive and innovative. I know coming up through different law firms, it can sometimes be a challenge to be heard, especially if you're a young person and you're studying and you have ideas. For me, the key was always being positive and trying to find solutions rather than always looking for the challenges. So if you've got young, innovative staff like I do, or I say young at heart, they're not all young in age, but let them be a little bit wild. They're the experts on twittering and blogging and interacting on social media. So maybe let go of the reins a little bit. I've really let them have plenty of capability, and I've allowed them to go in and access our social media platforms so that they can do a really great job and be connected with the public.
And if you were to pick one aspect of your journey taking the business online that you would say has worked really well and you're really proud of, what would that aspect be?
I think for us, it was really just getting it up and running in the beginning and having faith that it would work. It's being positive, and you get plenty of negative feedback from people not wanting to engage in a paperless world. And, it's just being positive and looking for those solutions. For us, it was definitely having a fully interactive website that allowed people to upload their information straight into our system. It was having apps that allow us to connect with people no matter where we are in the world. And obviously in this COVID environment now, it's been so helpful to be able to have our staff successfully working at home, and our clients have no idea where we actually are. It just works seamlessly.
That's fantastic, Jess. And it's interesting that a lot of people think about going online as a retail option, and you're an entirely different type of business. I should say that if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll have those sent through to the studio, and we'll try and ask the questions once we've been through our panelists. I am going to move on to a more retail business now, because there are a lot of people who, since the COVID pandemic has begun, have realized that they need to move their retail presence into online as well. And somebody who's been doing that is Tani Martin from Indigo Attic. Good morning, Tani. How are you?
Morning, Paul. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. So before we go into the questions, Tani, do you just want to tell us a little bit about Indigo Attic? Where are you? What you do?
Sure. Indigo Attic is located in beautiful Foster. Grew up here, so really great to be able to open my own business here. I own the business in partnership with my mum, and we are a very small team. It is just mum and I. So when sort of talking about the challenges with business that I'm sure we'll elaborate a little bit more on, capacity is definitely being one of them. We have a retail store that stocks baby wear, women's wear and vintage. So we are quite an eclectic mix of what we offer, and we have a lot of Australian brands. So we're really hoping to continue to support other Australian startup brands and offer something unique to Foster.
So what and when did you decide, what made you decide that it was time to take the business online, and when did that happen?
Yeah, that happened COVID lockdown last year. So prior to the first lockdown for us here, we were a paper and pen business. We had no digital tracking of our stock take. We were very old school. So it was a very, very steep learning curve for us to have to acknowledge that the lockdown period meant we had to move online. We'd always considered that moving online would be a long-term, goal for our business, but finding the time to do that was always a struggle. And it wasn't until we went into lockdown that we very quickly learned that moving your store from paper and pen to a fully fledged digital business that integrated both your in-store sales and your online sales was a lot of work.
And I would say that that's probably a fairly common story, Tani. I know that a lot of businesses were looking at digital and saying, well, we know we need to get to it at some point. But then COVID came along and that point suddenly arrived very, very quickly. When that point arrived, where did you start your process? Where did you begin going, now's the time?
We were very lucky to land on a wonderful graphic designer who captured our brand so well. And I have spoken to many people, and unfortunately, you know, who you work with can really determine your journey as you enter the online. And she spoke to us in a way, I guess layman's terms you could say, because I don't come from a marketing or digital background. I'm actually an exercise physiologist, funny enough. So we landed on the right person, and this person captured our brand and built the journey with us online. And it did take at least 5 to 6 weeks before we went live. And much like Jessica, we went live and we were clunky. We didn't nail it the first time. And I can put my hand up now and say 12 months later and entering the next lockdown, we still haven't nailed it.
So you began taking the retail store online. How did you find connecting those two? Did they feel like separate businesses, or did you feel like they were connected?
I think the brand aesthetic connected really well, but the user experience didn't. So we really pride ourselves on customer experience within the shop. And, you know, we're very personable and we have great relationships with our local customers. And we just found that people were landing on the website, but really missing the customer and user experience as part of that digital experience online. We really weren't offering that well.
So how then, what kind of process are you looking at to enhance that? How are we trying to get that Indigo Attic experience within the website?
Listening. It's actually listening to people who are using our website. When you're in the website so much, you've been part of its build, you miss the gaps. You can't know what you don't know, and you can only observe your experience online. I liked how Jessica sort of thought, as the customer, how do I want to navigate this? So we've really started to assess the experience online, both from a brand aesthetic, but from functionality. How easy is it to move around within my website? And have been working with the Strengthening Businesses program, reaching out to friends to ask them to use our website and let me know where it's clunky. How was your experience? That's helping us better plan a strategy on making sure that customer experience online is good.
And I know that there's some tools that you've been using in the website to try and map how people use it. Do you want to tell people about some of the tools that we use?
Yeah, absolutely. So we used a tool called Hotjar, and it gives you a heat sensitive map of how people are using your website. So when they land, where do they go? Where does their arrow hover, or where are they clicking, to help identify particular areas of our website in its user friendliness or lack of user friendliness, where it's clunky, how we can fix it, why people's browsing didn't convert to entering the cart and then entering a sale. What were the gaps in transitioning the customer from main page through to cart through to a converted sale? So Hotjar's been a really great tool for that. And looking at our analytics of, if they're landing on our page, how long did they stay? Often, if they've not stayed very long, you know that your main page doesn't offer them what they're looking for, or visually it's not easy to find. So we've definitely improved on our ability to find our gaps by looking at your analytics, and Hotjar was a really great tool for us.
And what were some of the challenges that you had in setting up the technology? Let's just talk about the technology for now, because you did a lot of this yourself. So what were the challenges that you had?
So we're using Shopify as our website, and we had a lot of challenges around figuring out how we could integrate the stock inventory. So if it's sold in our bricks and mortar store versus if it's sold online, how do we integrate the point of sale and the transaction? So it turns out that Shopify and Square don't integrate. So we've had to figure out ways to get around that. I know things are a lot better now than when we first went into lockdown with regards to, taking that transaction as part of the sale. Gosh, the challenges have been big. I'm especially not coming from a digital background, but definitely the tracking of the stock take and inventory, and also the transaction of the sale within the store has been our biggest challenge. And we found out actually that when using Shopify, if you click that you've used an external point of sale, then it tracks it perfectly. You don't have to buy the Shopify package that at the time last year was about $2,000, where you had to buy all of the point of sale, the receipt, the cash drawer that was Shopify branded. So we sort of hacked our way around that.
Where did you find that information? Because I would imagine that that's something that a lot of people would come up against, that, it seems like you have to use the tool that's matched with your website.
I Google, lots of time on Google, lots of time on YouTube, and trial and error. I think that's probably been our best tool as a business that's online, is actually testing things, giving it a go. Does it work? Doesn't it work? And not giving up. And acknowledging that we do at some point have to add on different things. They call them apps within Shopify that will make the user experience better. Prior to this lockdown, we actually didn't have a barcoding system either. So now we've had to integrate barcoding into our Shopify website, which you do via apps. And each of these apps will cost, anywhere between $6 to $20 a month. So you do have to consider how user-friendly are these apps versus the cost that starts to accrue for you in running your online business and your digital business each month. We found that barcoding was great, but then we realized that we had to buy the barcode scanner through Shopify, which was another added cost. But another helpful hack is, it turns out we use an iPad as part of our point of sale within the physical shop. You could actually use the camera of your iPad to scan a barcode. And that was just a trial and error thing. So there's another little friendly tip.
And these are great tips. So obviously you've spent a lot of your time researching, and I would say that as a small business owner, you're not alone in this. We have to make ourselves experts in so many different fields. When you look at your journey into the online space, what would you say is your big success? What's worked well for you?
I think acknowledging that we were never going to get it right from the start, and that each lockdown has provided us with the time to actually assess what's working, what's not working, where do we need to improve. And I think remaining really open-minded that there's always room for improvement. In saying that, that can become quite overwhelming. And, the deep dive into digital and marketing and your socials and your analytics and when to post, when not to post, it really can be overwhelming. So one of my own personal strategies is I have a big whiteboard, and I have pillars and different areas of the business that I know I need to either spend some time researching myself, consider outsourcing that, pending how high a priority that is in order to ensure the success of our website. Particularly during lockdown, we're a small fish in a big sea of fashion retail. So making sure that while we know we need to do all of these things, how do we prioritize them on a level of importance? And, when we consider our capacity, how do we outsource that as well?
So when you say prioritizing pillars, do you want to give a little bit more on that? I think it's a really interesting concept.
Yeah.
A lot of people just go, I need a website. Boom.
Yeah, so I think one thing we really nailed from the start was the brand aesthetic. So we were coming from a really strong base where we didn't have to completely change that part of our website. We really offered the brand aesthetic between online and in the physical shop was seamless. the lack of seamlessness came for us through user experience. So prioritizing the end user's experience, analytics has been number one for us, because that's the best way to determine where we haven't got it right online or where we need to improve our navigation, because it's hard enough getting a customer to your online store, you know, in the little fish in a big sea. If they're there, we need to make sure that we can keep them there. And how do we offer a good experience to convert what they might like or what they have in their cart to a sale? And one of those really great recent suggestions has been integrating a wish list app to our retail store. So, you know, I've begun to learn, you know, in some conversations with Giles and just, you know, with the Strengthening Businesses program, is often, as customers do when walking into your physical shop, they don't buy the first time they come in. And they kind of browse around, have a look, they want to buy, but probably not right now. And a wish list app allows the end user to be able to come back and instantly find the things that they liked the first time they landed on your website, rather than having to go through all of your stock or all of your collections all over again. So the wish list is a number one priority for us at the moment.
I think what's really interesting, coming from both yourself and Jess, is there's a whole heap of concepts that are rolled out in the digital transformation field that, without really knowing you're touching on. And I'm going to come to Giles for this. Before we start talking about these concepts, Giles, do you just want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us what you do, who you are, where have you come from?
Yes, thanks, Paul, and good morning, everyone. So I'm a facilitator with the Strengthening Business Initiative, which is part of the larger Entrepreneurs Program. We're a team of independent business experts that help businesses become more competitive and productive, and able to withstand the rigors of, you know, bushfires and pandemics and floods, and it's what it says on the box: strengthening business. My background is firmly in the digital space. Since starting my first business, which was an SEO company 15 years ago, I've been devising and implementing digital strategies for hundreds of small and medium businesses around the world, including a few of my own along the way. Alongside that, I've taught digital strategy at Sydney Uni for the last 3 or 4 years. So to say that I love digital marketing is an understatement. So, you know, I'm excited to be part of this conversation this morning.
And what's been interesting, as I just said to Tani, is that as Jess and Tani have been speaking, if we were to talk about academic digital stuff, I've heard MVPs, I've heard agile methodology, I've heard data management. I've heard all these concepts that people often talk about with digital transformation. One of the most important one, I think, is Tani mentioning having pillars of the business. Because when you look at taking a business online, it really isn't just about building a website and hoping people come to it, is it?
No, if you're going to make your entire business digital, there's a lot involved. You've got to think about the technology, the people, the processes. Everything has to work seamlessly together. Having said that, you do kind of need to, you know, a website is a good place to start. You know, there is a school of thought that says you don't need a website to take your business online. I've seen a few products take off just from marketing on Facebook or YouTube, but for most, at some point in their journey, the customer wants to research the product or service further than just seeing an ad. And a website is generally the best way to help them do that. Customers expect you to have a website, and meeting customer expectations is an important part of your digital marketing. And those expectations, customer expectations, have increased a lot in the last 18 months. So, you know, creating a website is a good place to start.
And you mentioned that the customer expectations, and I think that at a time when businesses are being pushed into the online space, some of them not being ready for it, the customers have a certain expectation that as a business you are going to be digital and that you are going to be good at being digital. So if as a business we need to do this, how do we work out where to start this process?
Yeah, good question. I think the best place to start is to shift your mindset from online being an add-on to it being part of business as usual. If you're used to customers coming into a physical store, think about what experiences you offer them offline, as those are often the points of difference that you can use to make your business more memorable online. For example, Indigo Attic might be really good at matching styles and fabrics or colors to complement customers' skin tones. And I imagine this would be a very visual experience, and visual experiences work really well online. So that might be a great place for them to leverage to make their business stand out and provide a great experience. It's also a really memorable and shareable thing. And putting your effort into marketing memorable and shareable experiences is a great way to sow the seeds that grow into a groundswell of traffic and customers over time.
I think that one of the things that also came out of talking to both Jess and Tani is they had slightly different experiences, in that when Jess began to take her business online, it was fairly niche and fairly new. Tani, on the other hand, has talked about being in the fashion industry and how it's a very crowded industry. So how important is it to find your own niche in the online world?
It is important. You need to be able to differentiate your business. You have to have a point of difference to stand out. And the best way to do that is to, if you can address your customers' pain points, if you can find out how your business is actually helping your customers, that's a really good way to start to differentiate your business. The mistake that a lot of people make when they go online is they focus on the features and benefits of their product instead of the values and the pain points of their customer. And as business owners, we're really passionate about our products and services, so we love talking about them. The problem is online that doesn't really work. Actually, it's not great offline either, but I digress. Customers love businesses that seem to understand them, that help them solve their pain points. So let's go back to Indigo Attic again. It's I think an online store is an easy one for people to sort of get their head around. But with online, with Indigo Attic, one of their customers' pain points is not knowing which styles and colors work for them. And that uncertainty causes hesitation and abandoned shopping carts. So addressing the pain point by explaining how to choose the right look for your skin tone gives the customers the confidence that what they're buying is the best possible thing for them. And once that switch has been flicked, they don't even consider going elsewhere. And so, yeah, does that help?
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting way of looking at things. I mean, often we do focus on our own product, and I think that part of that is because we completely understand it and we tend to market to ourselves because we also understand ourselves. How do you go about understanding the pain that you're solving with a customer? Is there a good method to start looking at that process?
Yes, but there's absolutely a really sort of solid process with determining the pain points that you're solving, and that's really about understanding the customer. The better information that you've got on your customer, the better the outcome of everything that you do from a marketing perspective. There's a time-honored approach in marketing, which is creating personas. And it's just a simple way to understand groups of people. Most businesses don't just have one target market; they have groups of markets, groups of audience, which have similar pain points, similar values, similar pain points. So understanding the different types of audience that you're marketing to is a really good place to start and a good process to go through.
Great. So one of the things that we've heard from both Jess and Tani is that there were some struggles in taking a business online. I would imagine there are some like really quite common pitfalls going into this process. What are some of those pitfalls that people should be aware of?
Yeah. So probably the most common pitfall is to assume that just because you build a website that that people will come to it. There's a I don't know if you've ever come across the 1989 movie Field of Dreams. Kevin Costner's character, a guy called Ray, hears these voices that say to him, if you build it, they will come. But sorry, Ray, if you're talking about websites, that's not the case. You do actually have to do something to get people to find your website. And when it comes to marketing your website, another common pitfall is that people just rely on one channel. And as I said, just because you've got a website doesn't mean people will find it. You're going to need to get the message out there. And just to put that into the context, a few years ago, Google did a study called Zero Moment of Truth. Zero Moment of Truth refers to the research that consumers do before they're ready to actually make a purchasing decision, particularly significant decisions, but sometimes for smaller decisions too, like what type of outfit to wear for a job interview, or which wine goes best with lamb. And in Google's study, they emphasize the importance of multiple points of contact with a potential customer across multiple locations, and for many hours. And they actually came up with a formula referred to as 7-11-4, which is 7 hours of content, over 11 touch points and 4 locations. And the locations refer to how those content and touch points are delivered. It could be through email, it could be phone, it could be website, it could be different social media platforms, it could be in store, or it could be in a meeting, either a physical meeting or a virtual meeting. So you can see that there are lots of different channels that you need to leverage, both online and offline, to get that to get in front of people. So, and like I say, a common pitfall is that you assume that just because you have a website and maybe you're throwing some money at Google Ads, that's enough. That's not enough. You have to have a lot of content in a lot of different places, and that content has to have a consistent brand message to tie it all together. So yeah, look, the key takeaway is you need to leverage multiple channels with consistent messaging to give customers the confidence to make a purchase.
And it's interesting that you mentioned there online and offline. I think there's a perception that when you move your marketing and your business online, that's where you stay, that the other channels that maybe you'd used previously, you don't necessarily need anymore. Do you find that that's quite a common thread for businesses moving online?
It is, and actually I'm going to reference Google again. An interesting thing that I learned some years ago is that Google is one of the world's biggest users of direct mail, so physical mail, so postcards arriving in businesses' mailboxes to encourage them to use Google Ads, so their advertising mechanism. So Google advertises its online product using offline marketing. It uses lots of other channels as well, but the two are not opposed. They can work together really well, and you're dealing with customers. You're dealing with real people, and real people have online and offline lives, or the same life, but they're using the different channels, and you need to do the same with your business.
it becomes the business being almost omnipotent, so that it appears to be everywhere all the time. And when you talk about those different touch points, it's probably really important to make sure that we cover as many of those as we can. I want to move on. I hear quite often the term digital transformation. Now, I think that there's a bit of confusion about this. Is this just taking my business online?
Taking your business online is a part of digital transformation. A whole of business transformation means that the whole culture of the business, it's technology, its systems, its processes, and everything in between are embracing an all digital approach. So no, just having a website is not digital transformation. The website is just one element of that process, but it is a fairly important one.
And that certainly came out in what Jess was saying, that one of the most important things that she did was to train her team to use those digital tools. Is it quite common that people have these fantastic ideas about technology and don't fix the other parts of their business to go with it? Do we find that happening often?
I think so. We all want to find that magic bullet, that one thing that will suddenly transform our business. And in reality, or at least in my experience, I'm yet to find the single thing that does that. It's about embracing multiple technologies and multiple things that are incredibly good at doing what they do. Tony mentioned Shopify. That's a fantastic system for building a shopping cart without a huge amount of technical knowledge. So embracing a system like that's fantastic, but it's not going to. That's not going to also replace your accounting systems or your stock inventories. So yeah, there's lots of different technology that has to be used and learned, and it is a challenge for business owners to adapt. But you do have to adapt if you're going to thrive in this space. You have to adapt.
So as we come towards the end of this section, Giles, if we were to bullet point some of the most important things when we look at in taking a business online, and sorry to put you under pressure with this, but how would we bullet point it? What would be maybe the 3 most important takeaways?
So, well, I'm actually going to make it two most important takeaways. The first one you've probably figured out, which is put the right message in front of the right people in the right place at the right time. And that's not as easy as it sounds. And I think we all kind of recognize that. But the second bullet point is provide an amazing experience. Customers want experiences. And the good news is that if you truly exceptionally deliver on item 2, providing an amazing experience, then item 1 starts to happen on its own. So for that reason, I would say, focus on providing an amazing experience through whatever platform you're using, and your business will start to get traction online. That is the number one thing. Experience, user experience is absolutely critical. Even so, the incredible behemoth that is Google has its machine learning has understood that users of its search engine are very, very driven by the experience at the end of the click. And that user experience is something which factors enormously into how well sites perform on Google. So even just from an SEO perspective, you should be focusing on customer experience. But at every step of the way, if you can almost always reference good versus mediocre back to the customer experience. So provide amazing experiences is the most important thing that I can offer people this morning.
So I asked you for 3, so I'm going to add the third in. Listen to Giles. That should work now. Okay, so we will come back very shortly to take any questions that you might have for any of our panelists. Before we do that, we've been traveling up and down the mid-coast and meeting some fabulous businesses. And our next case study has actually embraced a great deal of digital technology. I went into the cafe before lockdown and sat out in the garden and ordered my meal and my coffees using a little QR code on the table and paid for everything there, and all of a sudden everything arrived. And it was just such a great use of technology and made it such a fantastic experience, which is really important, as Giles has just been telling us. So let's hear a little bit from Donna at Bent on Food and see what she has to say about doing business in the mid-coast.
Well, I started this business 16 and a half years ago. I love food and I love gardening and agribusiness, so it seemed like the right thing to do. I'd been in the wine industry for many years and worked with restaurateurs, so it was time to have my own. Then in 2009, I opened a retail premises 2 doors up with the same value system. We support local producers, so our values with the homeware store are upcycling and looking at sustainable products, which is what we do here as well. We've got a sustainable accreditation, so we've worked really hard at that. We opened the backyard up sort of 6 or 7 years ago, so we just keep reinventing. The business is best known for local produce and great coffee. We have a really good reputation for our coffee, and we like to support local producers and tell the story about the producer's product that we put onto the plate. We like to feel like we're giving back to the community where we do business, because that's really important to us. The fires, we supported everyone with free food, free coffee. We did the same during the floods. To be honest, before COVID, we choose a charity twice a year. People come to us and we do an event for them, and all that money goes to that charity. So we do that, we always do that. And then we also give to every charity. So any local charities really we support. I grew up here, so I'm one of those tree sea changers who went away, went to Sydney, to the big smoke, got a career, had a corporate career, and then wanted to come home. And this is just the most beautiful place in the world. I don't know why anyone would want to do business anywhere else. We've got the ocean, hinterland, and the people are really friendly, so it's perfect for me. We're really close to Newcastle and Port Macquarie, so it's really great for visitation. And we have beautiful local produce here. There's a lot of rainfall, so we can pick up fantastic fruit and vegetables. The beef that we use is Wingham beef, so we're all working together to create this experience that puts our region on your plate. It's just perfect. Bent on Food's always evolving. It's been, an ever-evolving business. We've just got a stage going in so that we can support more live music, which is something important to us as well, because of local musicians, need to be supported. We might end up with another cafe soon, who knows? But yeah, we're always evolving.
The lovely Donna out in Wingham, and another really enjoyable day going out and filming a local business. We've had quite a few questions come in, and I have my phone in my hand, not because I'm a millennial and can't live without it, but because this is where all my questions are. So we're going to come to Tani first. We've had a question around cybersecurity with businesses going into the digital space. So do you want to tell us how you manage your cybersecurity, Tani?
Yeah, sure. Look, thankfully, the Shopify app and the monthly fee that you pay offers a level of fraud analysis and cybersecurity. So you can actually see as an order comes in, it's fraud analysis from low, medium to high. And We've thankfully not had any high risk purchases happen for us, but I do know in a few different forums that I'm following that often people will make contact with the customer to verify their identity if it's been identified as a high risk transaction, and Shopify does that for you.
So that's a case of, I guess, mitigating your risk by pushing it onto a provider that has all those things built into their systems already.
Absolutely. It took a lot of hassle out for us, that's for sure.
And I know, Jess, that cybersecurity is really important in your business. And it's interesting this question came up because you really have to work hard on that. And you've got something coming up around cybersecurity, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess being a legal firm, it's really important in having all of those legal aspects covered. And we do the normal things that everybody does, like, having the insurances in place. There are policies that are available, I would say, to most businesses. We had a huge amount of, I guess, pushback when we first went electronic in conveyancing. We use a system called PEXA, and there was uproar that people would have their money stolen when they were paying for houses and that sort of thing. And I think there was a handful at most of instances. I guess the main thing is really just understanding it's all about managing risk. There is risk in anything you do. You can take a check to the post office and get hit by a bus. These things can always happen, but it's about transparency, about having disclaimers about if you're transferring money, these are the processes and these are the systems. As I guess technology gets better, the scammers get better, and it'll always be there. But I guess setting expectations for your clients and managing that risk is a huge thing as well. And I think that having a guru in these areas for you to understand those risks is really important. None of us really know the ins and outs of anything to do with cybersecurity, but getting a guru that knows about this, someone locally that can support you. I use the Beach Geek, and he's excellent. He's really knowledgeable. And there's also a seminar coming up in November. Stay tuned. Keep an eye on the Foster Tuncurry Business Chamber page. That's coming up in November, COVID permitting. But if you are interested in this area and wanting to know more, you'll be able to get the information there as well.
I just wonder whether, Jess, you might touch on some of the worries that you would have around security. I mean, I confess I am a little bit of a cyber nerd, and I do understand some of these things. And people talk about things like SQL injections, which is when a bit of code gets put into forms on your website. Is that something that you've had to worry about? Because there's a lot of people filling in forms on your site.
Yeah, we try to have that monitored. We try and prevent rather than have a cure. So we do have the insurances in place if something happens. One of the main risks for us is just people intercepting emails. So we might be requesting funds from a client to go into trust, and that email gets intercepted and they change the numbers. The next thing you're putting money into the wrong account. We just put things in place to really prevent that happening. So we ask our clients to always phone us and confirm details. As soon as we get information put into our system, we're always calling people and clarifying that information is correct. As I said, there is always some risk involved, and that's whether you're working in a store or whether you're working online. It's just managing that risk and making sure you use the information you have correctly.
I think, Giles, what's coming out here is that it's being online is not that different from being offline. If we were, say, running a live event, if there's cables, there's a risk of electrocution and water and things like this. So basically with online cybersecurity, do we take the same sort of process where we look at what we're doing, look at what the risks are, and then just find ways of managing and mitigating those risks?
Paul, apologies. The audio actually broke up through that question. I got the very beginning and the very end. So would you mind repeating it, please?
Of course, I'll just make it slightly more succinct. When we do anything in the real world, we do a risk assessment. Is that basically what we do in the online world as well? We look at the risks and we look at ways of mitigating them.
Yeah, look, I think so. It's the risks with, not necessarily in relation to cybersecurity, but the risks with online is the big risk is actually not being there. If you think about convenience, so convenience, I've always believed that convenience kind of outweighs everything, which is why we end up using a lot of the technology that we use. And you know, even for the very smallest businesses, you know, maybe a local cafe, and particularly at the moment where you've got travel restrictions and stay at home orders, it's not convenient for people to, and it's actually not even legal for people to go out exploring and figuring out whether a company is open or not. So you want to be able to go online and look at their Google My Business profile, see what hours they're open. You want to be able to go onto their website, even if it's just a small single page website, and understand what they're offering. Maybe you need to book into certain places because they've got restrictions around when they can operate. So the risks, in addition to cybersecurity risks, there are risks of not embracing these digital channels.
And it's interesting, we've had one of the questions in our chat, Giles, which is asking that for businesses who, for example, have most of their customers within the LGA that they generally service, should they really put money and time and effort into online marketing, or are they better off with the more traditional stuff that they've always been using?
Yeah, well, look, I think, you know, as my comments just then address that to some extent, that you're helping your customers, you're making your customers' lives easier by embracing the technology that they are embracing. Most of your customers will have smartphones. Most of your customers expect to find, even if it's just as simple as your trading hours and your address, so that they can find you and plug you into Google Maps and in their sat nav to drive to your office. Then customers are used to using those technologies, and particularly in the last 18 months, where everyone's adoption of those technologies has just gone on. You know, we've probably jumped forward 5 years in 12 months in terms of digital adoption. So yeah, I think even small businesses, small local businesses that only trade within one LGA, of course, they can still offer value and offer better experiences to their customers through digital channels, definitely.
And it's interesting, you've mentioned being able to find businesses in Google and also the directions to the business in Google. And part of the reason that we developed the Bigger Backyard, and we'll be talking in depth about the Bigger Backyard in our next webinar, is to flatten out that Google algorithm. You know, as we know, when you go Googling for businesses, Google makes money from the adverts, and those are businesses that you see first. The Bigger Backyard is designed to be specifically local. So if you are a local business and you want to start getting a digital presence, then the Bigger Backyard is a really good place to start. There are innumerate digital platforms that you can use. There are the big ones: Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, Twitter, and I'm probably missing many of them. I'm interested, Jess, to find out how you decided which platforms you were going to use. What was your process in understanding that's going to be the place where I can get my message out?
As Tani mentioned earlier, I think a lot of it was hit and miss to start with, and you see what really works for you. The huge benefit to me for digital marketing was really that it's measurable. So it can actually equate to how much you spend to how much you actually earn in terms of, I guess that response from people. So just monitor, really look at your analytics, see what's working, get a guru. That would have to be my utmost advice to anyone is if you're not competent in doing this, it's great to learn. But if you already have so much time invested in your business, get yourself a guru, rack their brain, ask them for their experience, speak to other business owners that have done it and get some recommendations. And that's exactly what we did. And since doing that, we've found that it's just been amazing to work in that space.
And for anyone who missed the last webinar that we did a webinar specifically about marketing your business in a crisis. And we talked a lot with Simon from Orbit Marketing and Tim from Sublime Media about how you get your message across in different ways, different platforms, and what the visual components of that message should be. If you haven't seen that, then I'm going to ask Tegan to send out with the email that comes out after this webinar, the links to the last two webinars so that you can take a look at that information as well. I am cognizant that we're coming to the end of our time with you this morning. I just want to say a huge thank you to Giles, to Jess and to Tani for being here. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for joining us. If you do have any further questions for our panel or for the Bigger Backyard as a whole, then feel free to email us at info@biggerbackyardmidcoast.com.au, and we'll do our absolute best to answer all of those questions for you. If you are a business owner that hasn't yet registered in the Bigger Backyard, then jump on the website at biggerbackyardmidcoast.com.au. It takes around 10 minutes to register your business. And if you do find that there's anything that you're struggling with, our team are there to help you. Again, use the same email address, info@biggerbackyardmidcoast.com.au, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can to help you through the process. In our next episode on Thursday, which will be 6:30 p.m, so we get a late start, we can all have a little bit of a line in. We'll be talking about the Big Backyard in more detail. We'll be going through a bit of a demo of how it works for you. We'll be talking about the importance of the trading local movement and how that impacts our economy, our lifestyle, and helps us build a stronger Mid-Coast. For now, though, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Enjoy the rest of your days, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday when we talk about buying local. Thank you very much.